I would like to welcome you to today's episode of the System Podcast, where we talk about everything medicine. And today, our topic is going to be on uncovering the guide, the book your teachers don't want you to explore. As you all know, the guide is one of the most popular book which is used within the medical hemisphere. It's easy to use, it's easy to go through, and today we have a guest with us in person of Abba Bashir. He's a 500 level medical student of the prestigious Bahrain University Kano, and he's a sustainable development He's a Sustainable Development Goals advocate and former Secretary General, Study Committee on Capacity Building, Nigerian Medical Student Association. I would like to formally welcome our guest to this program.
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure and honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll go straight into the program. Now, starting first, the guide is a book which many people use, and I'm sure you have been using it for a while. So our audience would like to know the brief background information of the guide, including things like the authorship, the publication history in brief, and what purpose does the guide intend to achieve, because you know everything have a goal.
Okay, the guide is a study handbook that is widely used in almost all Nigerian universities, and it was published by the Muslim Students Society of Nigeria, College of Health Science, University of Ilorin, for the purpose of students and also house officers and other doctors to use as a sort of guide. And this is not supposed to replace your normal textbooks, but just to serve as tips for your studies, and also to guide you in terms of maybe OSCE exams and also some procedures. And it has many series, literally like 5 series. You have the pediatrics, you have the obstetric and gynecology, and you have the medicine, the surgery, and you have the psychiatry. And the latest edition now is the 4th edition, which was published in 2016 and printed by As-Salafi Production.
Okay, thank you very much for this beautiful opening about the book. As we all know, the guide have garnered a lot of attention and controversy within the medical cycle. In fact, every teacher will be like, what am I seeing in your eyes? The guide, don't read it. So, this attention, what do you think is the reason of garnering this attention, and what do you think is the cause of the controversy?
Well, from my own point of view, I think our teachers are not referring to us not to use the guide at all, but for someone that is a beginner, being your first time reading topic, you should not just go directly and read the guide, because the guide has some clinical tips and those in bullets. You should start off by reading your normal big books that will explain everything in detail to you. As I told you, the guide is a handbook and just provides a summary. So as a medical student, you can just start by reading summary. You cannot start by reading summary of something that you have not read before, you have not understood, you have not assimilated. And even in the book, they said it should not replace your normal textbooks. So that's what our teachers meant by that. But some students would rather just take the book and only read the guide, which is not supposed to be so.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying this misunderstanding most of us are having. Now, as you have mentioned, you have kind of given us the series which the guide kind of have. So I'm sure we don't need to go through this again. So I would like you to highlight some specific tips and techniques which the guide have followed in its book, which have which is kind of different from the traditional way of reading. You know, traditionally we just believe, just go there, read everything in the textbook. So the guide coming in a different way, small version. What are the special tips that it has come with, which is different from the traditional way of doing things?
So the guide series, they have a unique way of arranging the tips and information. It's usually exam based or exam standard, and usually follows how our teachers want us to write the exam. So having prior knowledge on a topic will take you on the introduction, the epidemiology, the pathophysiology, and all the bullets that you need in order to gain your marks. And also, especially for OSCE exam, for clinical exam, the guide is very good in terms of arranging the questions you're supposed to ask a patient while clerking, whereas in other textbooks is very voluminous and big. You might spend more time finding out those key points. So that's one key attribute that the guide has.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And this attribute you've just said is very important, because I believe no matter what somebody knows, if you cannot pass the level or move on or graduate, you will never be called doctor, because graduation is very important as much as the stuff too. So thank you very much for that. Now, another thing we would like to know here is that we would like some insights from students who have used the guide so far. I'm sure a lot of people have used the guide and have graduated. What are their kind of like advice with regards to the guide that you can give us?
Well, I've interacted with many students, our seniors, that have used the guide in the past and they have made it. And not only the guide, but you have to be attending your lectures, number one, be attending your ward rounds, clinical activities, reading your big books first, and then come and revise with the guide. And is a very good book that close to the exams, it can summarize something that maybe has been explained in chapters, just in few pages, that you just look at, and then it will remind you of the things that you have read, things that you have heard and seen during your clinical activities, and just write it. It's very good for recalling things from your memory, things that you have read. So even from my own perspective, the guide is a very good book that you can use, and even from our seniors.
Yeah, thank you for that. Now, from your statement and from your points, you have actually tell us that actually the guide is not actually discouraged by our teachers. They are just trying to tell us that we are not using it in the right way. So can you kind of clearly, I know you've been giving points on how we should use it, but can you just clearly tell us a practical way we should use the guide to get the best out of it, and also telling us some of the clear reasons why our teachers are criticizing the book?
Okay, so from my own experience, the guide is a book that I usually go through before a lecture and go through it after a lecture. The purpose of going through it before a lecture is to have a highlight on what the teacher is going to talk about, and then I will attend the lecture, of course, and after the lecture I will look at it to know what are the key points I need to pay attention to. So our teachers actually discourage us to use only the guide. Some will skip lectures and use the guide only, and the guide is not really self-explanatory. As I told you, it's just a handbook that provides some clinical tips. So if you want to maximize your gain from the guide, you should read it maybe before a lecture and after a lecture. It will help you assimilate maybe your understanding before a topic and your understanding after a topic, and also close to exams that you have done your clinical rotations, you have read your big books, know your topics well. You now come and take the guide. Okay, what are the key things that I should ask? Because the guide highlights some key things that you should not forget. You should not forget to ask. So these are some ways that you can maximally use the guide. and use it along with your other books.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, as we all know, the guide is not the only small book that is kind of available that somebody can just read before exam or preparing before lectures. We have things like Adeleke and all those kind of things. So if somebody is new to the system, nobody to guide them, the guide is there, this one is there, so many books are there. So how do you advise students to critically explore and in a short period of time and choose, should I use the guide, or should I use Adeleke, or should I use this as my go-to book when exam comes close? Because obviously everybody will not definitely use the guide and everybody will not use Adeleke. So but people want to know how they will critically choose in between these two.
Well, apart from the guide, there are also other books as mentioned, like Adeleke and others. There are also handbooks, but though the guide is the most popular and also the one that I've first came across, because people use it also to pass MDCN exams. So I think first of all you have to look maybe what at the topic that you want to read. There are some topics that obviously are done in other handbooks better than the guide, but however the guide does justice to every topic. So just look at the literature and how the topics are being explained and the English being used, and as we all know ourselves, we know what we understand better. So you can read, maybe start by reading one topic in both or all the books, and then see which one you assimilate better, and then you can choose one and carry it along. Though I do sometimes check other books like Adeleke, but the guide is my main handbook that I use.
Thank you very much. That's actually clear explanation. Now, just like you have been saying, you have been advocating students should not just focus on the guide, you should also explore so many these things. So can you just in brief give us the advantages of exploring other sources, like maybe videos, bigger textbooks and all those kind of things, before scaling down to small books like the guide? Because I'm sure so many people, they just believe, let me just be reading the guide around the cycle until I cram everything. So which tips are you going to give us and advice with regards to exploring other things?
Okay, as I mentioned earlier, the guide is only a guide and it's just a handbook that provides some clinical tips. And medicine is being studied for a minimum of 6 years, so obviously you cannot just master medicine using a handbook.
Yes.
So you need to couple it with other things like your lectures, your clinical activities, tutorials, your calls, and your other big books. And the advantage of other big books is that they provide in-depth explanation of how the disease process occurs, how the natural history occurs, and ways to understand it with diagrams better. Unlike the guide that just provides only bullets, a student that reads the guide will just end up memorizing the guide. And if he sees a patient at the emergency unit, he or she will not be able to know what to do exactly, because you have to understand the different ways which disease presents, and the guide will not only give you some of the ways, but if you read bigger books, it can give you in-depth explanation on how to manage different cases.
So can you advise us on like one bigger book, specific like medicine, surgery, pediatrics, and this thing? What are the recommended bigger books that you think?
So starting with medicine, like in medicine, I think you should not finish medicine without reading Kumar and
Clark.
That's
many people have been saying that book, but why not Davidson?
But you can use Davidson as well.
Okay, but Kumar and Clark is more better. I think maybe because of the English code.
Yes, probably, and also other things and the way they are arranged their things.
Exam focus.
And maybe, as you said, you can use Davidson. It all depends on you, which English and which pattern do you understand best.
Yes.
Maybe because I use Kumar and Clark, it might not work for you.
Yes.
So that's for medicine. And like for surgery, you cannot finish surgery without reading Bedo or Bailey and Love. So they will give you a detailed explanation of everything
the
that I
disease
need to do.
process, yes.
And in obstetrics and gynecology, you have your 10 teachers and your Agbola. So
What about the Duta?
yes, Duta is said to be a reference book.
It's said to be a postgraduate book again.
Yes.
Too. Seriously.
So at a level of medical students, your Agbola and your 10 teachers.
But what about the Viva Bose
Eh.
of the Viva of Duta?
Well, I've never used it before, so I cannot say much about it.
Okay.
And in your pediatrics, you have your Azubiki.
Definitely.
Yes.
So thank you very much for the beautiful advice. Thank you for joining us in this mini podcast, and we would love to have you again for a more lengthy podcast with a better topic. So here we would like you to just give us maybe one or two sentence summary to this. They said no matter how long a talk is, there should be one or two sentences that it's very important with regards to the whole discussion. So what can you say?
So what I can say from everything that we have discussed is that the guide is a book that is not totally discouraged by our teachers, but just know how to use it and when to use it, and also be attending your clinical activities, your ward rounds, and the guide should not be a replacement of your big books and your lectures.
So thank you very much for coming to our program. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge to us and the world, and thank you very much for sharing love. So bye for now.